So, Michael, can you tell us a little bit about the Educators Toolbox and the initiative that Learn undertook?
First of all, let me thank you, Randy, for doing an excellent job summarizing the three-part series that we did. What I found particularly interesting and quite significant is that you started off talking about Dewey, then you gave a little nod to Vygotsky and then a little bit of proximal zone development, then touch on Piaget, some connectivism in there. And I think what all of this suggests is that really good pedagogy is grounded in solid research. Research isn't about people living in ivory towers. It's really about looking at what teachers are doing in the classroom and finding out and identifying good educational practice. I want to thank you for that because I think it's important. And what we saw in the course of our three workshops is that a lot of teachers really started to understand that it's a very challenging endeavor to take your classroom from brick and mortar setting into the virtual one. And it requires a lot of work, a lot of preparation. But all good teaching requires this. And I think this is, again, what you were implying all the way through, is that you can't just throw it together at the last minute and expect it's going to work. It doesn't work at any time and in any setting. And in the online world, you're adding that a variable that's a complex one of technology. I think that's a really important point all the way through.
We've had centuries of practice in terms of education and teaching in a physical environment. And myself, I've had a couple of decades of practice of doing this in the online environment. It doesn't come easy, it doesn't come quickly, but we continue to refine our practice and our craft. So let's talk a little bit about the toolbox. Okay, so the Educators Toolbox, what was the initiative here for Learn?
Well, we recognize obviously that not every teacher was available for our workshops in real time. And we decided that it would be important that they be able to access this at a time that's convenient for them, or even for those who were there to go back to look at it. And so we really have put it together in such a way that it progresses. And when we talk about the online resources and the workshops that we did, it starts off with the foundational side of things. Then we look at the community of practice, and then we start to look at the detail. So as you look through all this, you'll see that, for example, in Module 1, Randy and I really take a look at what really needs to be thought of as we go through all this, that there are some very fundamental and structural considerations that come into play when talking about online education. We talked about the community of inquiry framework that you alluded to earlier, Randy, and there's going to be more to come in when it comes to all of this, but this was really what we felt was an important starting point in the whole process. So if you scroll down in all of this, you'll see that there's more to come, and there are additional resources, there are curated resources in here that help to really tie it all together. If you take a look at Module 2, we're now looking in Module 2 at online communication and really creating an environment that, again, aligns with this whole community of inquiry model, where we're setting the stage for what goes on inside the classroom. It's important to keep in mind that teaching should be a collaborative and cooperative endeavor. And that doesn't mean just between teachers, but also between teachers and learners. And this is what we really talk about. And so you'll see a series of vignettes and short little videos from our online teachers who have many years of experience, and they talk about how to communicate with students and providing different opportunities. So I think it's invaluable as well as practical that you take a look at some of these resources that are in there as you go through. And
Michael, sorry to interrupt. I love the vignettes in that they're very short clips of some of the key critical points. If you don't have time to look at the whole video, grab some of the vignettes specific to this. And then there's a whole bunch of links here about going further in this particular module, which are terrific.
Yeah, absolutely. And this comes from our online teachers mostly, and also members of our community who contribute to this. I think it's really important that you understand it's a very vast and complex and situation scenario. I think it's worthwhile taking a look at in Module 2.
but you have such rich resources to share that I think are really important as part of the whole thing. So the modules help us to understand what are some of the immediate steps that we may want to take as educators, but then we've got this to come back to on an ongoing basis as a reference.
Yeah, and obviously, very often teachers want to know, can you tell me right away, like, what are some tips, some tricks? What can we do? What are some of the tools that we can use in our online classrooms? And this is what we do in Module 3. We really address some of these things. We have summaries of them. And again, you will see little vignettes. There's the whole video, the module presented. But then within that, we extracted the vignettes, as Randy suggested before, that allow you to take a quick look and say, for example, how can teachers shift from emergency remote teaching to more intentional online teaching? And that's really what we're very concerned with. We want it to all be intentional.
And I love this little vignette that was put together with the team's favorite tools, but I like the fact that it starts with the purpose or the pedagogy, and then different tools can accomplish the same thing. So to me, that's such a fundamental part of what is explained and expressed here.
This is the design process. It all has to be intentional. You have to start off by saying, what is it I want to accomplish? And again, I would suggest to you that you look at it in varying time frames. What are your objectives in a longer time frame, a medium, and a short term? And then from there, once you've decided on what your educational objectives are, your instructional objectives are, you can start to put together this puzzle of sorts and decide on which tools that you feel would work best for you. And if you take a look at the spreadsheet that was put together, it mentions a whole variety of different tools and for different applications. For content delivery, you've got VoiceThread and Loom and EduCreations. There's no shortage of resources, and these ones help to identify what they're best for and who can use them and in what context, if they're better for synchronous or asynchronous communication or varied applications.
Exactly. So, a whole bunch of experience sits on this one spreadsheet. And I like the fact, the caveat, although at the bottom, I put it up at the top here, is that many of these tools can be used for multiple activities. So it's not just learning one sort of tool for one thing. Mm-hmm. So, and again, more places to go further in terms of competency frameworks, as well as, explanations, like you've done here as well with links to other Learn webinars and live streams that are available around specific topics, etc. So there's
so we're drilling down here. I'm sorry, Randy. Yeah, we're drilling down, as you can see. We started from the big story, the foundation, and now we're working our way down to some of the very specifics. For example, the webinar done with Audrey on graspable math. And I think that's for all the math teachers, it's useful whether you're using an online setting or in a conventional setting. But here it is, again, a very practical, useful resource that's there that you can keep coming back to. That's, I think, one of the big advantages of an asynchronous resource, and also for those who have concerns about bandwidth. And we know that that's an issue for a lot of people. In our last section in the toolbox, we have tools and platforms, and we again address the whole question of synchronous options, what's best to use, some of the pros and cons, some of the advantages and the disadvantages. We should not get hung up on, is Microsoft Teams better than Google Meet, better than Zoom? All these resources have their advantages and their limitations. And so what we're saying to you really is explore them, become comfortable with them. Don't get hung up on which is the best one. That's the wrong question. They're really at the end of the day, pretty much all equivalent. You have to go with what is comfortable for you and what works in your particular context.
And I wanted to bring back another point that I mentioned as well in the presentation, is it's really important that you align yourself as a team, as a school, with what your school districts would be, are all using as tools. Because otherwise, think of it from the student's end of it or the parent's end of it, is that there's multiple platforms all of a sudden that they're dealing with. The children at different grade levels or different schools with different teachers. That's just impossible. So all of the tools can accomplish the same thing. And yes, I know that I have my favorites, but I can also learn to adapt to use some of the tools that are consistent, which makes the experience that much better for students as well. And you've done the same thing, I think, with the asynchronous as well.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. And this isn't the time for you to be the outlier. And I'm not even going to suggest that you might find something somewhere, some obscure resource that does something better than this. The problem is that then you're out there on your own. Randy's point is very well taken. Think of yourself as a member of a team, and use the resources within your community, within your board, your district, your school, to be able to build on, and also make sure that it's familiar to your community. You know, I think that's important. Randy, at the end of the day, very often parents want to see what's going on. We're talking about teachers and students. Parents want to see it as well. So sometimes it's better that we stick with something that's familiar, and we recognize its limitations and work within those limitations to get to what we want done. Although, to be honest with you, today, those limitations become really more a question of taste and preference than real true limitations, in the sense that we're not able to do what we want to do.
Absolutely. So I really thank you for the opportunity to be part of a host with a dynamic team that you have at Learn as well, but the quality of the materials that are available and continue on afterwards, I think, is a testament to smart pedagogy, smart teaching, smart ways in terms of engaging people online. So even if you just model what we've seen the teachers do from Learn here and are sharing in this series, I think it's probably more than enough.
Thank you so much, Randy, first of all, for putting this together, and also for your management guidance throughout the whole process as we put this series together. I think it's really useful, and again, for us all, and we benefit all the time from sharing different perspectives. You're out on the West Coast, we're here in Quebec. We're in separate worlds, but at the same time, we're really all one part of one large community. So thank you, it's much appreciated.
Thank you, Michael. And I'll just leave for the folks here who want to see, I'll just leave you their contact information as well. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. Good luck to everyone. And I know that Learn will always be there. And certainly I will always be there online. If you have questions, you need some help, reach out. This is what the virtual online community is all about. And we're there as you will be. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.